Good afternoon. Today I will present to you five seminars which I have attended during my second year of international business management at the Artevelde University College. I hope you enjoy. Okay, so the first seminar that I've attended was that of Professor Dr. Dirk Buyens. He talked about working and living abroad. Secondly, there was Elizabeth Vennekens-Kelly, who taught us a little bit more about doing business in the USA. Joeri um, informed us about the next generation, and the fourth seminar was Professor Dr. Kamienski, who gave more information on the relationship between economic freedom and world happiness. Finally, I attended a seminar at the University of Ghent, um, which in which Filip Nuytemans, the general manager of Uber Belgium, was a guest, and this seminar was organized by FLYSE. The first seminar is Working and Living Abroad of Professor Dr. Dirk Buyens, who came to the University College of Artevelde the 1st December in 2015. Dirk Buyens is a full professor at the University of Ghent, and he is the dean at the Vennekens Business School. Buyens is specialized in people management, career management, and organization development. And it's needless to say actually that this seminar was a huge opportunity. I wanted to start off with an interesting quote of him. He told us, being out there is one thing. Having learned something is, however, the key question. He started with describing his experience in different situations, different countries. The first experience he's talking about is in Valencia. When Buyens went to Valencia the first time, he had no international experience. He was not well prepared at all, and he wasn't able to speak Spanish. So, he had to suffer over there for 3 months. The next stop is the University of Minnesota in Minneapolis. Over there, he had to study day and night. It was a great experience, but he felt very lonely. Luckily, he found his wife over there. He then went to China, where he visited Beijing, but he didn't understand a word as he didn't speak Chinese at that time. But now he still visits Beijing 15 to 30 days a year. Next on, he talks about his stay in St. Petersburg. He's still there 20 to 30 days a year, and he told us that it is very hard to talk about politics in St. Petersburg. He continued with 5 international competencies that we must possess before traveling abroad. First of all, the language skill. It is very important, he said, to show interest in a country or in the people of that country by at least learning the basis of their language. So even if it isn't perfect, he said good enough beats perfect. Then secondly, the inside out view. He said that we have to look at the world and also at our own country from another's perspective. He gave the example of explaining Belgian politics abroad. Thirdly, there's the multi-ethnocentricity reflex. What does this mean? You shouldn't always think that your own culture is better than the other. He gave the example of thinking that Germans are always shouting. But that's not true, actually. You need to be open to other cultures. The fourth competency is the homelessness skill. Well, it is mandatory to have a stability, a high emotional stability, because being homeless is not an option. So you will never come back and have the feeling that you come home. So you really need high emotional stability. And he finished with his fifth international competency, and that's the cultural facade. He said that you really need to be able to see through it. Okay, now how do you prepare before leaving? First of all, think about it. Think it over and over and over, read about it, and so forth. Then, as already mentioned, you have to learn the local skill. And remember, good enough beats perfect. Okay, so then dare to jump when you feel you have to. Okay, don't wait too long before leaving. And he also added that there is no right or wrong place in the world to go. Inform yourself on the place you are going to, that's quite logic, and also get to know yourself before you leave. Okay, what do you really want? Okay, once you are there, you need to reach out, because people over there won't. You need to show your own interest. Showing interest will result in getting interest back. Try also to look for similarities with the other culture rather than stereotyping differences. Okay? Over there, you need to work hard and open your mind, of course. And he said, act like a local. Try not to act like a tourist, and engage yourself in their culture. What I found very interesting as well was that he talked about our return, and that a good preparation for that is mundane as well. For example, everyone is interested in your story for 30 seconds. Also, you need to know that life went on, so there's no need to push yourself. He said that leaving is easier than coming back, so that returning home might be even more difficult. And you have to behave amongst your friends, not above them. Take time when you get home to reflect on yourself, and then just enjoy the memory. So, as a conclusion to this seminar, I learned that you shouldn't wait too long before leaving. We're young and we have to enjoy every moment of life. So, why shouldn't we go abroad now? Also, be prepared before you go. It's very important to look up as much information as possible. Try to talk to people who have already been there, and so forth. Also, there's no wrong place to go. Actually, that's true, because the experience of being abroad, of getting to know a new culture, is most important of all. And prepare for your comeback. It really struck me that he said that coming back will be that difficult. The second seminar that I've attended was on the 9th of February in 2016. It was doing in the business in the United States, presented by Elizabeth Vennekens-Kelly, with a double last name, because that's what makes her unique, and you'd immediately tell she's American. Elizabeth Vennekens-Kelly is an intercultural trainer and consultant. She was born and raised in the United States, and after having worked in America as a business executive for over 20 years, she moved to Belgium. She now centers her attention to help those doing business in multicultural settings. Mrs. Vennekens-Kelly works with both individuals and groups. She conducts trainings, seminars, and workshops, and she gives intercultural presentations throughout Europe. She also gives seminars in the United States and parts of Asia, and that's it. Good to know is that she also wrote a book, The Subtle Differences, Big Faux Pas. The seminar was divided in three major parts: American attitudes, employee qualities, and non-verbal communication. Every topic started with an exercise on the worksheet, which was then supplemented with additional information by our Mrs. Vennekens-Kelly. So first of all, the American attitudes. She introduced this topic with 5 statements about the average American citizen, and those statements made very clear how career-oriented Americans are. Not only in the United States, known as the land of opportunity, children make their first presentation in kindergarten. People change jobs 12 times on average in a lifetime, and the legal retirement age is 67. So we could conclude that Americans clearly live to work. The second part was employee qualities. So she started with a sum up of some important American values, and for example, freedom, self-reliant, open to change, patriotic, entrepreneurial spirit, and so forth. She then moved on with the qualities employers value the most. So for this, we had to list our top 3 qualities and strengths on our worksheet. And these were then afterwards compared to those most valued by American employers. Surprisingly, or not, because it's IBM, 2/3 of the room did match employers' expectations. The third part was nonverbal communication. For this topic, she welcomed 5 volunteers on stage, and each of them had to illustrate a specific gesture which we could then fill in on our worksheet. Afterwards, Mrs. Vennekens-Kelly pointed out some important cultural differences between the United States and Western Europe when it comes to gestures. So, to my conclusion, I thought that Mrs. Vennekens-Kelly was a very good presenter. She had the crowd's attention from the beginning till the end, and the tools she used, PowerPoint and whiteboard, were very good, balanced. Overall, with limited time, Elizabeth did a great job outlining some of the most important concerns when doing business in the United States of America. The next speaker that I will review is Joeri van den Bergh. Joeri came to Artevelde College on the 1st of March in 2016. He is the author of the MAA awarded How Cool Brands Stay Hot, Branding to Generation Y book. He also owns the company Insights Consulting, of which he is co-founder. He started with explaining the different generations. First, you have the baby boomers. Those are people born between 1946 and 1964. Then you have Generation X, 1964 till 1979. Next generation is the Gen I, 1980 till 1996. And then you have Generation Z from 1997 until 2011. Vandenberg had three observations. First of all, there's snappy, then there's striving for a better world, and then it is I am making it. First, let's take a look at the snappy observation. Okay. The snappy observation has a first characteristic which is ephemeral. Ephemeral means that media disappears in a moment. So you really have to focus on the media when it is there. For example, Snapchat, Vine videos, and so forth. The snappy generation is also very emotical oriented. Vandenberg calls it emotional generation. Second characteristic of the snappy generation is the age of impatience. So younger generations never want to miss content. For example, series, films. An answer to that is Netflix. They are also phygital. This means, for example, an example of being phygital is ordering at a bar using an app on your phone. Interesting about this is that, for example, marketeers need to try to show their content within the 5 first seconds of their advertisement. Okay. Then there's the on-demand experience. For example, Uber Fresh, Uber Essential, Amazon buttons that you can place everywhere in your house to order things instantly, and so forth. Okay, we already had snappy, and the second observation is striving for a better world. So, the first characteristic of striving for a better world is the blurred gender. This means that the younger age are more in favor of gender equality than the older persons. Nowadays, genders are more blurred, and an example of this is, for example, the boyfriend jeans. Girls started wearing loose man jeans. Also, a lot of shops now have gender neutral clothing collections. Also, if we look at Walt Disney, which always had princesses and the prince and nice fairy tales, we now see more movies like, for example, Frozen and Rapunzel, where the female character leads the story. We also see more female dolls as heroes. Instead of, for example, Superman, you now have Superwoman. For adults, there's also a blurred gender change. For example, House of Cards is a series where a woman takes the lead. Game of Thrones, also a woman with a lot of power. Hunger Games, Divergence, and so forth. So we can conclude for this that we really want female empowerment in marketing campaigns. For example, Procter & Gamble had a campaign with the hashtag like a girl. Okay, the second characteristic of striving for a better world is the concernation about health. So we see that Generation Z is more concerned about health than the older generations. For example, the person that came with the idea to clean the ocean from plastics was a Generation Z guy. There's also enoughism. This means people have had enough. For example, the 20 days without meat challenges, 30 days without cars challenges. People are more aware of society and environment these days. So he concludes that there are more macro do brands. So brands that do something for their society. Yeah? We also need to look as a company at what can we do. The third observation that he made was I am making it. Okay, so the first characteristic of I am making it is the me economic. So people want to make things themselves. For example, Lay's have their personalized bags, Coca-Cola have personalized cans with your name on, and so forth. The second characteristic of the I am making it society is perfectly imperfect. For example, Minecraft is a very popular game, yet it has extremely bad pixels. Craft foods, they make meat that would look like you cut it yourself, so it doesn't look perfect anymore. Jennifer Lopez, as you can see on the background, often makes weird faces on the red carpet because she also believes in perfectly imperfect. There's also something coming up which is called philosophy. So this means that people more and more want to talk about failure. Failure today is an option. You can learn from failure. It is better to be absolutely ridiculous than be absolutely boring. To come to a conclusions, well, if you think about marketing, you don't always immediately think of the different generations. Okay, you do think of the people that you want to reach, but you also have to think about how a specific generation thinks, how they handle, what their interests are, and so forth. So I think the studies Bergh is doing are really very, very interesting. One thing on his presentational skills, okay, it was all very interesting, but sometimes it was a little confusing. The order, I prefer to have more structure during the presentation, but it was a really great opportunity to be able to attend one of Joeri Bergh's seminars. The fourth seminar that I have attended was from Professor Dr. Kamienski. It was on the 2nd of May 2016 and was about economic freedom and relationship to world happiness. Kamienski is a professor of finance and economics in the North Park University in Chicago. And yeah, why did I attend this seminar? Because, well, it's cliche, but happiness is the most important thing in life. Whatever we do or everyday activities should eventually lead us into happiness. But I had some questions. What is happiness? Can it be measured? How does it relate to economic freedom? And leading from these questions, I signed up for Kamienski's seminar. So, Kamienski started with showing a very interesting video about people aged between 5 and 105 years old, and they were expressing what happiness meant to them. The factors that most occurred were family, food, friends, seeing other people, learning, financial stability. So yeah, it was a very interesting video, and Kamienski concluded the video in 5 different dimensions. The first was mental. So yeah, you have to be able to learn. You need some emotional intelligence, emotional well-being. And then psychological are the more environmental factors. Um, he related this to the changing environment of Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram. We start thinking in other ways. Then social. He made the distinction between virtual friends and real life friends, and how this can be blurred sometimes. About spirituality, he said that everyone has to believe in something. And when it comes to happiness on a professional level, he said that it is important to find a good quality between work and life, and of course, you need some kind of financial stability. Well, to be honest, so far the interesting part of it. In the second part of his presentation, Kamienski talked about some stupid, boring graphs. Yeah, it wasn't really that interesting, except from one interesting fact. Um, and that is where studies show that economic freedom in South America is rather limited, but happiness in South America is very high. So while other studies show that there really is a positive relationship between economic freedom and happiness, in South America you have low economic freedom, high happiness. And this proves that happiness is still a very subjective matter. And it is also influenced by many different factors, different from economic freedom alone. To come to a conclusion, I must say that, okay, that was a very interesting topic. The prof was very enthusiastic, but from someone with such a title before his name, I expected a little more content. So Kamienski talked and talked and talked very much, but I don't really have the feeling that I learned a lot from his presentation. The last seminar that I've attended was not organized by Artevelde but by FLYSE. FLYSE is a organization within the University of Ghent. It is which organizes seminars and invites very interesting guest speakers to the university. I think it's twice a month. So this time it was the subject was 0 to 1, and the guest speaker was Filip Nuytemans, who is the general manager of Uber in Belgium. So Uber is the on-demand taxi service created in San Francisco. Nuytemans had 6 very important pillars which made Uber that great. The first pillar was minimum viable product. So you don't have to start with a perfect version. There is no such thing as a perfect version of your product. You have to begin small, evaluate, and improve. That's what Uber has done as well. That's what other big companies such as Facebook have also done. He said if you are not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you've launched it too late. The pillar is big data. So Uber uses big data to make things more convenient. They anticipate on, for example, big hours. So when the ask for taxis is very big, using their big data, they can analyze that. They can prevent the service from blocking. They can make sure that there are enough drivers and so forth. So they really use big data to improve their services. Third pillar is growth and cannibalization. Okay, so Uber had more customers, which resulted in more trips. But The problem was that customers are growing. The number of drivers didn't grow for the same amount, so they had to come up with a new idea. The idea was to invent Uber Pool. Uber Pool is a system where you can drive along with 2 or 3 different Uber users in just one taxi. So you split the price of your cab with people you don't know. You could then say this is cannibalization of your own company, but Nuytemans said, okay, it might look like that at first sight, but sometimes it is better to cannibalize yourself than have someone else eating you up. Experiment and experiment and experiment. Uber is a never-ending experiment. For example, in the summer they had less customers, so they invented Uber Ice Cream. Uber Ice Cream could deliver ice creams to people in just a matter of time, and from there evolved Uber Rush and Uber Eats, now a food delivery service by Uber. So that's experimentation. The next pillar is partnerships. So he mentioned that it is very, very important, even for a big company as Uber, to have good partnerships. Always try to find some kind of a win-win situation. For example, Spotify is a partnership of Uber. Spotify is a music streaming services. Once you get into your Uber taxi, you can immediately turn on your Spotify using your mobile phone in that taxi. Another example is Hotel Tonight. Once you arrive at or once you have booked a hotel, I guess you immediately get Uber updates, or well, he briefly explained that. But important to know is that partnerships are important, and try to create win-win situations at all time. The last pillar was dare to change. People don't like change, but if you believe in your own ideas, then dare to. Okay? Listen to others, but always stay critical. And he concluded this with another quote saying, people don't like change, but as long as you have a clear vision in mind and you realize your goals, people will follow your change. So as a conclusion, well, I thought those tips, those pillars were very interesting to keep in mind when I will start entrepreneuring myself. But on the other hand, I thought that his presentation was a little more a promo and explaining what Uber is all about than a real teaching experience. Okay, so this took a little longer than I thought, but attending those seminars was a great experience for me, and I hope that I could convey my interesting learning experiences to you thanks to this slidecast. So I hope you enjoyed. Thank you. Bye. Bye. Okay, where do I stop?